Lights, camera, action. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us Julia Stiles, actress in over 44 feature films and projects, and also 16 broadcast projects as well, one of which was a directorial on the project Paloma, where Julia was a writer and a director. I first met Julia on a short film that she made called Raving back in 2007. I could not be more pleased than to have Julia Stiles. Oh my God.
No, it happens all the time. Don't worry about it.
Julia Stiles on Conversations with Charlie. Welcome, Julia.
Thanks. It's so good to reconnect with you. And also thanks for, I've actually never counted the number of projects that I've worked on. So thanks for putting it in perspective for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, inside there, which is kind of, I mean, it's really fascinating because your career has a lot of sort of alternating beats, right? Because you start in ghostwriter in a TV sense. I mean, obviously before that, we could pull all the way back to when you were studying at La Mama or with was it the Ridge Theater? Tell me a little bit about that. Go back to the beginning and then we'll race around.
Okay, I'm gonna go way back into the depths of my memory. Well, no, I was born and raised in New York City. My mom's an artist. She had friends, still has friends, who ran a theater company on the Lower East Side called Ridge Theater Company. And like her friend was the set decorator and paint.
Oh, we just froze.
Founder of this theater company, but it was a fringe group of actors and directors that would do like 2 shows a year at La Mama and a theater called One Dream Theater, which doesn't exist anymore. I was on North Moore Street. And so I was 12 years old and at a like dinner with all these bohemians and my mom, and they said, well, we need a kid in this next show that we're doing. It's like 3 lines. Do you want to do it? And I jumped at the chance. And then I became a member of the company. And every year when they had a show, I'd have slowly my roles got bigger and bigger. And then they hooked me up with an agent. And I started auditioning as a teenager, after school for like movies and TV. And then got like bit parts here and there. I wasn't really great at commercials. And then, so ghostwriter, and then did a movie that Claire Danes starred in called I Love You, I Love You Not, where I didn't have any lines, but, slowly started getting more work. And then 17 years old, I flew out to LA and screen tested for a movie called 10 Things I Hate About You. And that changed my life.
I love. I actually, just as a refresher, I just watched it last night.
Really? Oh my God.
I did. Wonderful.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. It's, I'm so proud to be part of that film. And I can't believe that, I can, but I'm really pleased that, and people are talking about it 20 years later. Like, that's a dream for any actor, just to get hired, but then to be hired in something that you really believe in, and then to have people respond to it is really great.
And sort of part of a somewhat odd trilogy of Shakespeare-based stories. The Taming of the Shrew for that, Hamlet, an adaptation, and then later on. But what was interesting, I loved watching the 10 Things I Hate About You. I especially enjoyed not only the performances of all of the younger actors and Heath Ledger and everybody else, but also Larry Miller.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little bit of an older guy, but I remember I was born in New York City on the Upper East Side, and when we were in our late teens, we would go to comedy clubs. We'd go to the Comic Strip and catch a rising star. This is like 1979, 80, that kind of thing. And I saw Larry perform stand-up back then.
Wow.
And he
as a teenager, you said? Like, yeah. How cool is it growing up in New York City that you get to do stuff like that?
Amazing, right? Yeah, I mean, and this is also the late 70s, before there was a changed drinking age. We were underage, don't get me wrong, but we were on the Upper East Side. It was a little rubbery. I mean, by the time things changed and the drinking age went up to 21, it got a little bit more tricky. But we used to frequent Catch a Rising Star and comic strip, and I used to see Larry Miller, Jerry Seinfeld, all the Joe Piscopo, all these comedians
Wow.
play, and Larry was, you know, just hilarious. So when I see him, I laugh. But he's playing a legitimately wonderful role as a paternal character in your film. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
it's funny.
amazing. Yeah, he's hilarious, and he brought so much. He was just brought so much to that part, and some great comic relief. But that's amazing that you got to see all those guys. Where
Yeah.
did you get your fake ID, by the way?
You know what? Back then, for some reason, they just let us in.
Yeah,
They just let us in. They didn't serve
yeah,
us alcohol, but they let us in. Later on, when people of the same age would attempt to enter into any establishment, that was not okay, except up at the York Bar in the 80s on York Avenue, because for some reason the bartender there didn't care if you were 17. He didn't even look. But you know, it was that time when they allowed us to do incorrect things.
before you had teenagers had to have like microchips implanted in them to no, that doesn't happen, but it's going to. It's going to some in the not too distant future.
Exactly. Exactly. Apropos of that, you're a mom, three years old, Strummer, 3.5. Yeah.
Almost 3.5, yeah. Yeah, I am. Thank you for being patient with my unpredictable schedule.
Well, trust me, I'm a dad. I mean, mine are 26 and 23, so I have to sort of hope that they come to see me occasionally, little enough interrupt me.
Right, right. And are they nearby? Are they in New York?
Yes, my daughter lives in Crown Heights, and my son is finishing up university and living at home in the online education world, living with his mom out in Springfield, New Jersey. Yeah, but I see them quite, you know, frequently back and forth when available. They both have very busy lives, but wonderful. And the name, I love the name, Strummer.
Yes.
Tell me more. I mean, I go everywhere in this podcast, so you know, we're gonna also.
Yeah, totally. Wait, here, hold 1 second.
Yeah.
So, Strummer.
Aha!
Well, basically, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Clash now. I mean, I knew their hits before. I wasn't. My husband was a big Clash fan, but when we first started dating, I was living in the East Village on Tompkins Square Park, and there's a bar called Niagara there, and outside that bar, there's a famous mural dedicated to Joe Strummer, and it says like "History is Unwritten," I think. So when we were dating in long distance, and we had just great memories of that mural and Tompkins Square Park, so we were thinking of musician names, and my husband came up with Strummer after Joe Strummer, and then we also, it kind of just stuck, and it was the thing where we're like, oh, it also means, you know, somebody who plays an instrument or plays a guitar, and it started to sound like a real name, so that's where it comes from.
I love it. I love it. I love the Clash. I mean, when I was a film student, I pirated one of the memorable Clash songs for the last moments of my thesis film that I directed, which was the film "Should I Stay or Should I Go?"
Yeah, there you go. They're, you know, and I'm not even really that into punk rock. They were very palatable punk rock, but also Joe Strummer was like such a interesting person. He was an activist, and I think that's expressed in a lot of his music. And then he went on to be in the Mescaleros, and he just, you know, they have a lot of catchy tunes, but then they also just the message, even way back in the 70s and 80s when they were popular, the message was a good one, you know, anti-establishment and very like socialist and egalitarian.
So you got a chance to launch doing the first sort of big project, and then you went on from there, and it just started to roll after that. how did your career go? How were you able to, you just one after another, or going independent and then large? Because it was a little while before the that was a big budget film right out of the gate, actually, early on with 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah, it was not a like typical, I think, trajectory for a career. I mean, I didn't know any of this at the time. I was just like, I wanted to get work and I wanted to work on things that were interesting and meaningful to me. But I think now I've learned a lot more about thinking strategically about the industry. But yeah, I did 10 Things I Hate About You. Then I enrolled at Columbia University, but I took like what they would call a gap year. Like I took a year off before I actually started.
Right
And
on.
at that time I made a bunch of movies. Hamlet was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Save the Last Dance was one of them. So I worked that whole year. And then started college when Save the Last Dance came out, and my career, the movies are released and my career, I started getting more recognition. And then, yeah, I mean.
And you went to Columbia to study English. You were not there to study acting or be in a part of the art school, correct? Or how did?
Right. I mean, the undergraduate, they don't even have an acting program. But I knew I wanted to go to school, and I think there was a part of me that was like running away from becoming famous. Like people started recognizing me on the street, or your day-to-day life changes and you are more in demand, I think, in the industry. And there was a part of me that was like excited by it all, but also a little scared of it. So I think university allowed me to be in a kind of insulated bubble and also have my focus. Like, you see these stories of young actors and actresses who have a certain amount of success and they very quickly can become drug addicts or, crazy. So I think that university really helped me like keep my head on my shoulders, because the focus when I still had to do my homework, I still had to, hand in those essays, and it seemed like I'm in school with people who are going to become doctors or, lawyers or politicians, that Hollywood wasn't the center of the universe in school.
Which is
but
great.
it slowed. I mean, it slowed. It meant that it slowed down my career in some ways. But I was very much looking forward to, whether I knew it or not, I was very much looking forward to, my goal was to have a longer term career than just be like in a sprint, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And the role that you took on with Patrick in Business of Strangers with Stockard Channing, definitely a badass girl, fantastic. And am I correct in saying this sort of is a direction coming that has a certain thrust from 10 Things I Hate About You? It's a character that, not that that's the same character, but it's a person with tremendous independence and sort of kind of a counter character to a more conservative person in this case, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Business of Strangers was such an amazing script and an amazing part, but dark, right? And so you could see that my interest, even though I was 19 years old, my interest was in some of that darker, more challenging material. And, I'm very grateful for all the sort of commercial opportunities that I've been given. But after 10 Things I Hate About You, I think there was a bit of a tug of war of like, the people in the industry want to hire you in rom-coms, and here's this angsty 19-year-old who wants to, make movies about, assault. I mean, essentially that's what that movie was about.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And it was also kind of, I don't know, it was sort of an anti-yuppie message too, right? The Stockard Channing character. And there was a theme inside of that where you had the woman on the business trip, and then so it was a context theme too. It was great,
Yeah. Also the lots of gender issues, you have these two powerful women, and in roles that we don't necessarily see women, or at that time we didn't see women portrayed as such. And yeah, challenging material, but and dark certainly, but also, I mean, I was, and maybe slightly less commercial too, but that was what was driving me creatively, and also to work with Stockard Channing, who's a legend.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. She was great in that. Such a great film. I love seeing it when I saw it at Sundance, and I lost track of Patrick. I don't know what happened to him after that, but that was a great project to be in. And then after that, you launched from that right into the first of the Bourne franchise. It's like the next one up, and boom.
Yeah. What a fluke that was. I had no idea it was going to be most of my adult life playing that role.
But how did it start?
It started, I distinctly remember being in my college dormitory. My agent sent me the sides. You weren't allowed to see the whole script. My agent sent me the sides, and it was a couple scenes. And I was stressed out thinking, well, if I go, this is so misguided. I was like, oh, but if I go and do this movie, then I have to quit school this semester and I won't get to finish my exams and I won't get the credits. Thank God somebody talked me out of that. And then I got on a plane to the Czech Republic and filmed a couple scenes. And then, and it wasn't a really big part. We also didn't know if there were going to be sequels and how the movie was going to do. And my character died in an original version of it. She was like Jason Bourne at the very end with Chris Cooper. He throws her up against the wall and I broke my neck. And then the magic of editing, they cut around that and Nikki Parsons got to survive for 3 more films.
Yeah, right through to Jason Bourne, the last one. Yeah.
This reminds me though, I feel like that, whenever I do interviews or any actor does interviews and they talk about the trajectory of their career, there's a bit of deliberation, like there's something deliberate at a certain point. Like I think more recently now, I'm much more deliberate about the choices that I make, but there's also, so much is not in your control and you kind of just, it's so hokey, but like, you're just walking in a path that somebody else carved. What I mean is that, very often actors are not in control of their careers and the opportunities that come to them and you never know what's going to become of like a small movie like The Business of Strangers or a small role like the first one I had in Bourne.
Right. And then if you look at the jumping around that you were able to do, like in the middle of all that, you also had the chance to work with David Mamet in State and Maine, which happened. It happened before Bourne Identity, but then later on you worked as an actor in the theater in Oleana, correct? In London.
Yeah, I did 3. Yeah, so I had always been a fan of David Mamet's writing. Not just his plays, but also he's written books on acting and books on directing. And so I just always, and then, he cast me in State and Maine, which was, I auditioned for it.
Earlier on, that was in 2000, I think, or something, right?
Yeah. And then did 3 different productions of Oleana. He didn't direct any of those.
Right.
But he's always gets approval over anything that happens. But yes, Oleana in London with Aaron Eckhart, and then many years later in LA, and then Broadway with Bill Pullman.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
And so you got a chance to do that. And then did you also get a chance to veer off to do, I think, Shakespeare in the Park and some other theater, right? I mean, were you able to do other theater, right?
Yeah, I was always drawn back to theater. That's how I started. The Oleana was really the only Broadway show I did, but I did Shakespeare in the Park. The funny thing, I look back on some of this and I totally want to do over on a lot of these experiences.
Sure.
Because, I mean, like Shakespeare in the Park in particular, I hadn't studied at Juilliard, so I hadn't really classically studied performing Shakespeare. I had read a lot of Shakespeare in school, but never really studied how to perform it. So
yeah, but still
a great opportunity.
Amazing experience, right? I mean, and then with Mike Newell in Mona Lisa's Smile, what what brought you into that? Because that was Revolution Studios. This is now a big studio. Now things are really stepping up. How did you get cast in that film?
I auditioned for it, you know, and but there's a thing that happens when you do have somewhat of a body of work behind you. You're coming in at a different time in the audition process, so like you're not going on a major, you know, cattle call, as they say, with a bazillion other people. You go in, they've been prepped, you know, and you have work to show also. So I did audition for it, and I think the question came up of like, would I be more interested in playing a different role in that movie? And I actually really loved Joan, I think was my character's name. Ugh, my memory. Yes, Joan. I liked that part a lot because I don't know, there was something unexpected about it that appealed to me.
And it was on that you met our mutual friend Tas Mikos.
I know.
Time. But it was not till much later that you met your husband on a film, Breakaway, right?
We met on a movie called Blackway, and that was
Blackway.
Well, I think it was like, I'm thinking Mona Lisa Smile. I was like 22, 23, and then it was 10 years later that I met my husband. But,
but your go back in time for me to your mom and dad. I'm real curious. Your mother and your mother's a potter, right, in the village, and your father was a teacher, but also worked with your mom. How did all that? How did you end up?
No, this is why Wikipedia and Google is not always to be trusted. No, I don't know why he's listed. I think he spent 1 year as a teacher in a New York City public school, because I think his mother was a teacher, and I think he was feeling like he had quit a big corporate job, and he was feeling like he wanted to do something more meaningful. Right. And then anyway, but that didn't last very long. He works with my mom. They have a business together, and they've always, I don't know how they do it, because I think we would probably murder each other if my husband and I worked too much together. We do work together sometimes, but anyway, they've run a business. She's had stores in Greenwich Village and Tribeca. Then they moved out of the city, and they work together. He does more of the like financial business side, and she does more of the creative side. So
right, and
works for them.
And when you were growing up in the city, you went to you went to Friends. Where you went to one of the you went to like a high school in New York, and then and during high school, then you also transformed to another school. While you were at Friends, you went on to another school and then you obviously were studying or becoming an actress at the age of 11, right? I mean, you were very young when you started doing theater.
So I went to PS3 in the village until
PS3 right on Hudson Street. Yeah.
Great school. Until middle school, then Friends Seminary. But you know, as I was working with this theater company, it never really interrupted school. Like it was always after all the other actors in it had their day jobs too, right? So it was kind of like, you know, we'd rehearse after school for me, and have shows at night, and then I'd show up for pre-algebra the next morning. But when I started working in film, which was really my senior year of high school, Friends Seminary, they were like, we can't really have you missing so much school, and they suggested I try PCS, which is you know, it's called Professional Children's School. It's, you don't really study performing arts, but my peers were like ballerinas at New York City Ballet, or musicians studying at Juilliard. So you'd have like they could accommodate a schedule if you needed to miss school or, you know, to work, basically.
Right. So you were able to do both simultaneously, go all the way through, and then you took a break after you got out of high school before you went to Columbia, and you acted for a little while. Not that long.
Yeah. I took a year off before I started college.
And then basically right now you have current project, you have a project that's just finishing up right now, the Orphan, what is that? The one that's in post.
So it's called Esther. Well, I'll back up a little bit. I've spent the last 4 years working on a British TV show
Riviera.
called Riviera.
Riviera, yeah.
And we finished our last season 3, in March, just when the pandemic hit. And it's it's hugely popular in the UK and Europe. It's not as well known, but I think an audience is growing for it here in the United States. But it's been an amazing, wonderful experience for me. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to be working for a long time, probably. And I was really reluctant to go back to work, like just out of fear of how do you have a crew of people socially distancing? That seemed impossible to me. But I read this script for Esther. Also, by the way, I was like, I don't like horror movies. I never watch them. Not my thing. But I couldn't put it down. And it was a really, really well-written script, very talented director, and really fun part for me. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. And it's a sequel to the movie Orphan.
Oh, okay.
Starring Isabel Fuhrman. So that was, and Vera Farmiga was in the first movie. But it's basically about a girl who, without giving too much away, a girl who, in the original, she's adopted by a family and then comes in and kind of destroys the family and tears it apart. And a similar thing happens in the sequel, although there is a big twist, which I can't give away.
I understand. Yeah. And that was recent work. Tell me a little bit about, because Riviera was 2-3 years of work, right?
3 seasons, so 3 years of work.
All shot in Monte Carlo, or where was that on location?
The first 2 seasons were all in the south of France, which is like the title character of the show, French Riviera. Monaco is a big character in it because there's a lot. It's all about wealthy people who. The original premise behind it was behind every great fortune is a great crime, and so Monaco is a big part of it because that's a tax haven. So a lot of it draws a lot of wealthy people who are trying to protect their money and all the criminality that surrounds that.
I watched
the last season we filmed. The story opened up, and we filmed in France, but we also filmed in Venice, and we filmed in Argentina because my character found herself wrapped up in this conspiracy with like a very corrupt Argentinian political family. It's fun. It's a conspiracy thriller. It was a great part for me, and I'm proud of the show, and I think I was really nice that the producers and creators of the show gave me a lot of input. So by the time we did the 3rd season, I got an executive producing credit because I had been so involved in the scripts.
Wow. And I believe that your husband was on the crew, correct? So you were all over there as a family, right?
It was very nice for our family too. We had met, we were already, I think even engaged by the time we did the 1st season, but he speaks French also. So having somebody that could kind of go between the British and the French crew was valuable. But we were able to work together in that time, which was great. And a lot of relationships really struggle, especially if 2 people are in the industry and nomadic. It can be really challenging on any relationship to not, you spend so much time on set that you basically, if you're not with your spouse, you're like living a completely different life.
Yeah. And was Strummer was born in 2017, is that right? So was that after you wrapped, or while you were still in? How did that go? When did that?
There was, the British TV shows are funny because they go consecutively, but there's at least between the 1st and the 2nd season, there was a huge gap. There was like a year where the studio we had to wait till the 1st season came out, then the studio has to greenlight it, and then the writer's room have to come up with scripts. And we also seasonally really needed to be shooting in the summer. So there was a year in between the first 2 seasons, and I managed to have a baby. So I was just thinking Toss is funny because he's such a lovely man, but I remember he texted me when I think he read that I had gotten married to a camera assistant, and he said, "You picked the right department." Yeah. Because he's a DP, so.
Oh, I know well, and I know his life as a DP very well. We've been out on the road together and at an event that we both share every year in Poland, where we go to a cinematographers festival called Camera, and yeah, so I've spent a lot of time with him, and I'm quite aware of his nomadic life as well. So yeah, yeah. It's a challenge. Cinematographers, especially at his caliber, go all over the place. They're
Yeah.
shooting in South Africa. They're shooting in Europe. They're shooting in Asia. Anywhere. They're just constantly traveling. And then so Riviera was 3 seasons. So it's sort of like it was a gig. It lasted a while, which is lovely, right? I mean, kind of during that period of time, was there time to fit other stuff in? How were you able to manage that? Probably not, right?
I did, yes. Between the second and third season, there were, because we would only do like 13 and then 10 episodes. It would be like half the year, so there was time in the other half of the year to do other things. I did a movie called Hustlers between the second and third season. Amazing. With a lot of New York crew that reminds me of Toss and reminds me of Mona Lisa Smile. And anyway, and then I did another movie called The God Committee, which actually is going to come out now this summer, I think in June. And that was a movie that got into the Tribeca Film Festival, and then the Tribeca Film Festival was canceled because of COVID. So I'm glad it's finally coming out. But yeah, I mean, and then I look back on Riviera, especially because of the pandemic, and I think about, oh my God, what a gift that I was able to work with my family on 3 seasons, essentially 4 years of this show that took us to amazing places in the world. That, I mean, we were filming in Buenos Aires, living in Buenos Aires for 3 months. March comes, we're hearing this like drumbeat of a global pandemic that is about to hit North America, and we finally wrap the show, get on like the last plane out, and then the world shuts down. So now, especially when travel is so restricted, I look back at that time on Riviera as what a gift that was.
Amazing, wonderful, yeah. And what's also great right now in the streaming world, outside of the project that you did for this group, Netflix is really centering itself in regions, doing regional language content. So shows like Marseille with Gérard Depardieu, or Call
Lupin.
Have
you seen the show Lupin? Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet, but I've seen Marseille, and I've seen Call My Agent, which in French is called 10%, which I love.
Me too.
And great show, very funny, perfect.
Very good show.
Yeah. And it's great that there's so much stuff that's going on now. The world has opened up that way. What we worry about is our mourning for the opening of the theatrical experience, which from what I've heard, I could be wrong, I think this coming weekend or soon, the cinemas are opening here in New York. I mean,
whoa!
I don't have absolute confirmation of this. I know in the suburbs they have, but the movie theater business has really gone through pain. Everything's streamed.
Yeah, but that's amazing if that's true, because I'm not to go on this a long rant about the state of cinema, but there's a slow. Do you remember there was an article written a while ago? The sky is falling, and it was about how streamers and are taking over, and like,
yeah,
there's the future of going to actually see film in a theater is going to be dead, because everybody's just going to have their own home entertainment system and doesn't want to deal with the public. And so then if you have, that's true, COVID makes it so that everybody is plowing through content at home. And I have to believe that there's still a part of us that wants to go back to the campfire. Same thing with theater, go back to the campfire and have a shared experience,
Yes, absolutely. And I think the hunger is going to be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny thing, because before the pandemic hit, there were some battles that took place with the theaters, because the streamers didn't want to provide a 90-day window So basically, there was no exclusivity for box office, and I think that may still be the same. I'm hearing a friend of mine who used to be, well, my friend Ted Hope, who used to be the head of Amazon before that, Good Machine, and all kinds of other this is that, all kinds of other stuff. I was talking with him the other day, and he was describing to me some of the models that involve putting out a movie in a streaming release, and then pulling it and only making it available in the theaters, which I was like, wow, that's interesting. That's turning day and date upside down. But something's going to have to change, because there has to be a reason why people need to have that desire to not just kick back at home too. But I think there is a reason. We're all isolated. We're stuck in our
We're all stuck at home. We're all stuck at home and cannot get out, cannot like, yeah, cannot get a distraction and a diversion quickly enough, you know.
Yeah, stir crazy. Is your husband's world has been affected incredibly, of course, because of production and COVID and all that, but it's back a little bit now, right?
It's back, you know. I mean, I even went back and worked on Esther, and that was, you know, that was like a 6-week shoot, lots of COVID protocol. But I think the film industry has done, and my husband's working now, has been nonstop working since probably the what month are we in? Last September, I guess. And there was a point in time when, you know, the industry shut down, but I think the film industry has done a really good job of figuring out how to stop the spread, so to speak, and keep people going back to work safely. It's expensive. I know it's like usually 25% of a budget, but
yeah, there are 6 people on every production minimum. A COVID captain, a COVID advisor, 4 technicians.
And then the testing too. The testing is what saves us, because I know with Esther, there were definitely times when everyone was obedient and wore masks and washed their hands and tried to be as safe as possible, but you cannot socially distance on a film set at a certain point. And also there were definitely days when we would be inside all day long, and maybe there are extras, but there's a lot of people inside. And whenever I would get nervous about that, the thing that always calmed me down was that everybody in this room is getting tested 3 times a week, you know, so thoroughly that there's no way that anybody here has COVID. And I think it's just, if you look at the numbers, like it's very, the film industry, most productions are able to either not have anyone get COVID, or if somebody does test positive, they can isolate them and keep it under control. So there's hope for our industry.
Yeah, there is. No, it's definitely happening. I mean, I'm personally working on a few projects right now, and there's stuff going on. It's definitely the things have launched back. I'm curious. We have to get into your experience as not only a director and a writer for the short film that you did, Raving, but also Paloma, which I know virtually nothing about. But you wrote and directed was it 5 episodes? What was it of the Paloma series? Correct?
Yeah. So
what happened? What's that? Tell me about that.
John Avnet and Rodrigo Garcia created this right when streaming was getting big, but then also YouTube decided it was going to have channels, and they were putting a lot of money into scripted content. So YouTube videos weren't just cat videos. They were like, we can put shows on YouTube. John Avnet and Rodrigo Garcia started this platform called Wigs, where they had a soundstage, and they were going to make a bunch of shows, shorter format, but a bunch of shows centered around women. So they would always, the criteria was each show had to be, the title would be the woman's name, and the only parameter was that you couldn't have exteriors, because we're all filming on a soundstage. But Rodrigo approached me about being in one that he wrote and directed called Blue. I did a season of that. I really enjoyed the experience, loved working with them. And in my conversations with them about doing another season of Blue, I said, "Hey, can I write and direct one? Not Blue, can I write and direct my own show?" And when we say show, it's their, again, shorter formats. So they said yes, and it was an amazing experience. And I did one quote unquote season, which was they changed the way they cut up, depending on the platform, they'll change the way they cut up the episodes, but it was like 4 episodes amounting to maybe 25 minutes, I think. then we came back the next year and did another 4 episodes, which I'd call season 2. And then they sold it to Hulu, and it was broadcast on Hulu for a while. But it was an amazing opportunity and experience for me. And I just loved, I always knew that because of my experience as an actress, like I could handle a set and I could give notes to actors. But when I finally was able to get into an editing room, I thought, oh, okay, I understand this now. And by the way, thank you for on Raving, you invited me into the post-production studio, and you and Toss essentially gave me like a crash course in film school and editing. But I discovered in all those experiences something that really helped me as an actress too, which was when you see what an editor does, it just frees you up. It frees you up so much in terms of not trying to control, like just gives you freedom in performing. You don't have to try and control your performance so much, as long as you trust your director and that they're going to guide you and choose wisely. Like editing can fix so much.
So true. Yeah, you build the story.
Yeah.
You build the story in the way that you layer and sequence and find how how it all comes together and how it layers. So important. It's a collage.
Well, it's very important to understand what part of the puzzle you are. Like, you know, I think actors can tend to get nervous and tense about making sure, like if you have remembering your lines, if you have a speech to give, it's like, I got to get it all in one take. Well, you don't actually, you can stop and start again and the editor can cut around it. Or understanding what the director is seeing, so that if they can't quite, they're having trouble communicating to you what they need, you can develop a shorthand where you go, you know, oh, I see, the camera doesn't see that. Or, you know, there are countless examples, but it's important to see, I think, through a director's eyes too, because, yeah, I'm rambling, but I feel like, you know, there's these stories of the method actors, which I think works in theater, but in film, like if you're so wrapped up, I love Daniel Day-Lewis and all of his performances, but if you're so wrapped up in your own head and you don't see what the camera, like from the director's perspective, what the camera's seeing or how they think they're going to cut the movie together, it doesn't matter if you know, have been shooting heroin because you have to play a heroin addict. Do you know what I mean? I'm totally rambling, but you get it.
No, but in the end of the day, the skill is both dialogue and visual storytelling. And filmmaking, whether it's for broadcast or theatrical features, is visual storytelling. And the best is where there's nothing being said and you're still getting something. You're getting the detail of what's going on, knowing how to tell the story. Both, I mean, it's not that we're working with the idea that we work with silent moments. We work with images and transitions and dramatic moments that don't involve dialogue, and also dramatic images that represent, right?
Right. Well, another parallel example would be, I just started working on an animated series, and that's all vocal, right? And the director in it, the other day when we were recording, it was I think my first day, and I was like, oh my God, I love this so much because you have to put everything into your voice. And she's like, yes, I'm always telling people that I can't, if you raised your eyebrow, I can't hear that. And there's a similar, you know, with the visual medium of film and television. You can be feeling all the feels you want, but if the camera doesn't see it, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So, when you approached me on Raving, tell me how that story came about and what got you interested. Because I mean, these are now, and correct me if I'm wrong, these are your two directorial and writing moments, right? Have you written any other stuff? I don't know. This is what I know. So
not yet.
When I have a feeling there's more coming, that's the next thing. But Raving, tell me how Raving came about, and also you cast Zooey Deschanel and Bill Irwin, and they were fantastic. I watched it, I loved it, and go ahead, tell me how that came about, and you know what prompted you. This is what 2007, I think, is when you came by and you made that. It went to Tribeca, and there it was. And Tosh shot it. And tell me about that. How did it come about?
Elle magazine. There was a producer, Celine Rattray in New York, who I knew, and she approached me and said, "Hey, Elle magazine wants to fund short films, and they were doing like a series. They think it's good advertising for the magazine. It's good sponsorship, all that. So it's an opportunity for you to cut your teeth at directing. Do you want to get involved?" And I said, "Yeah." And then it was just a conversation with the magazine about, well, what do you want it to be about? And I saw it as an opportunity to get someone to fund my short film, basically. But I worked with them in terms of like, what is the story going to be about? And they really wanted it to center around, the idea was the dress that changed my life. And I was like, okay, but what if we I ended up writing something, because I wasn't a huge fashionista at that point. And I was like, well, what's my twist on that sentence? And so I wrote Raving with the idea that with the idea of grifters in New York, but then that this older man who is having trouble, is maybe almost senile, but you slowly start to learn that he's not accepting his reality, like he's lost his job and he still goes and shows up to work every day. He develops a friendship with this young woman. Anyway, it centers around a dress that she wears, she finds in his house, and he then confuses her with his deceased wife. Like he sees her in this dress and he starts having flashbacks and is confused.
It was the dress of the ex-wife. Am I wrong, or you tell me? I don't know.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. I'm surprised that you saw the whole thing, because I feel like I don't know where to. I don't have a reel or anything. I feel like I can't find it because it's chopped up on YouTube. I think it's in because it's a longer. Oh, thank you. It's like 20. It's at least 20 minutes, which is on the longer side for a short.
Yeah. No, that's how I watched it. I watched it in 3 pieces. That's how they did it on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And then Toss was like, I think I was around. It was on the heels of Mona Lisa Smile, and
that's right.
And Toss was like, anything you want, Julia, I'll do it. And I mean, he does giant studio movies, so it was really cool of him to be like, I'll make your short film. And also, he was really cool to collaborate with, because he was very respectful of my vision, but also very patient with, teaching me more than I knew at that point.
Yeah.
Great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, no, he is a great guy. And in my world, going back when I was still with Technicolor before I went out to kind of go out on my own in post supervision, he was, we lost you there for a second.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
What?
We need to just get the camera back.
Okay, wait, hold on.
My podcast producer will.
There you are. Okay, sorry. It's in. Okay.
So anyway, yeah. What was always wonderful and what was unique about Toss was that when you had veteran cinematographers like he is, you have craftsmen who are capable of guiding what the image will be, from having shot on film photochemically, having finished films photochemically, and what we used to refer to back in the early days before digital finishing as making sure that your creative ideas were in the negative. And then left behind was what you intended, and you didn't have to do like crazy things to make that happen. And Toss was someone who was it was almost bulletproof. When his stuff came in, it was like, oh yeah, this is what he wanted. You didn't have to go very far.
Oh my God, I think about that experience, and I've learned so much from it now on a practical level. But Toss was so game. We were running I wrote way too many locations in the script. So we had a 4-day shoot. We were running all over the place. There were 2 magic hour shots that we had to race to get. So that's like 2 of our shooting days.
Wow.
Then there was also filming in a club, and there was a sequence where she's dancing and there's like a strobe light, and he did this thing where he didn't have to, we went into a club, he didn't have to light practically. He had something like a flashlight or opened up the stop on the camera, I don't remember, but it was the coolest, like kind of trippy sequence. And so he's very, from a studio background to like very, very imaginative and artsy fartsy, and was so game to like, you know, cram a lot into a 4-day shoot. The other thing was that I was stupidly a purist about, and I think that's why we came to Technicolor and talked to you. I was like, I'm insisting on shooting on film, which when you broadcast, I mean, I get it if it's going to be projected, if it's going to be projected in a theater, there is something really magical about the unpredictable accidents, like the happy accidents, you know, with the great film grain, or like hairs in the, you know, the shutter, you know, there is a primal thing that I love about film. But if it's ultimately going to be broadcast on YouTube or just on a computer screen, now I've come around to being like, okay, yeah, digital makes sense. But,
Well, also digital has gone through tremendous advancements since 2007.
yeah. Totally.
Back then, you could literally say if it was shot on film, you got a dynamic range that was really not available otherwise. Now
Right.
I won't say it's the other way around, but you get pretty much everything you want digitally now. You did another short. Well, you did another 2 shorts, but you did another short that I haven't seen. I don't think these short films are not accessible. There should be like a short film channel. Someone should do this.
They should. There should be. Yeah.
And there's a short that you did with Neil LaBute called Sexting.
Oh my God, that's right.
Tell me about that. I didn't get it. You're gonna laugh. I tried to find it, and the only thing available is a trailer. But the trailer is pretty good because, you know, I don't have to tell you, you're the star, but the way it's done is it's a male point of view with a woman's face, basically, like.
Right. Oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
The guy's head is the camera.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Look at it that way, and he's basically getting, you know, somewhat ripped to shreds by this woman who's facing him. And I love what I saw. I'd like to see the whole thing, but tell me about that. Tell me about Neil LaBute. How did that come about? I'm you know, listen, I go everywhere in my podcast, so this is an opportunity to talk about something that maybe doesn't always get spoken about.
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't Google sexting because I'm not responsible for whatever comes up. But whatever spam comes out, not my fault. Neil LaBute wrote a monologue basically for me, and that's what it is. It's essentially me looking down the lens of the camera and talking into the camera. And I'm trying to remember, but I think the premise was that, you know, in beautiful classic Neil LaBute writing, this isn't revealed until later. Like, you don't exactly know what's going on until, I think, if I remember correctly, it was that she essentially was like having an affair with a married man and then ultimately is going to blackmail him about it. Or I don't remember, to be honest, but it was essentially a monologue. Again, beautifully written. And we shot it in LA one day. I had been, how did I meet Neil? I think there had been a few of his plays that I was going to be involved in that maybe never got up and running. I think I auditioned for one in New York. I auditioned for one of his plays that ended up being on Broadway, and Alison Pill ended up playing the part amazingly. She was brilliant. But that's how I met Neil and kind of kept in touch with him. Yeah,
Interesting short, and interesting to do shorts, I would think, in your career. I mean, this is not like that long ago. We're talking 2010. It's after you did Raving.
Well, also that Neil LaBute short was like a dream for any actor because it is a monologue, and you know, normally, like, yes, film is a visual medium, so you know you're only a small part of it, but to have it just be a monologue is really fun. Yeah.
I understand you're a huge Mets fan.
Well,
Is that true or not, or is this just something that gets thrown out by in publicity because I guess you threw a pitch out at one point or something?
It got seized on by the internet. I am a Mets fan, but I would say like my dad says I'm a fan of baseball. So long-winded answer. I a long time ago wore a Mets shirt to a premiere before I had a stylist, and and then so that became a thing, and then I got to throw out the first pitch at a game, and I was a huge Mets fan, I have to say, kind of shamefully, because I've been out of the United States so much in the last few years, it's hard to keep up with baseball. And then also these guys get traded all the time. My allegiance to one team is not that strong, but yeah, I mean, I'm a Mets fan. Yeah, I'm a Mets fan.
I mean, you know,
but if you ask me like statistics of even what's going on now, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
It goes generations. I mean, I sort of started my life, you know, having a direct subway line to Yankee Stadium from the Upper East Side. So Yankee Stadium became sort of the destination for baseball for me. Some of it's geographical, some of it's just out of memory. Some of it's about where you were taken before you could go on your own, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, baseball is a thing.
I was really into it in the Mike Piazza, Robin Ventura,
that era.
But now it's just like I don't get into the rivalries so much too. Like I'll go see a Yankee game, I don't care, but not the Red Sox. But for me, baseball is always like I like listening to it on the radio, and it becomes kind of like Valium or like white noise to me. It's just I like the art of baseball and I like the slowness of baseball, but I don't get into the major rivalries, I guess.
No, I understand that. And did you, as a kid growing up, were you athletic?
Mm-hmm. I was not very coordinated. I didn't have much hand-eye coordination, so I played soccer a lot all the way through college, but like basketball, I was not very good at.
There's an indication that at some point, I mean, of course, I have to dive into all of the various elements of your life, but you did study dance as a younger person before, alongside acting, I guess, right? Like ballet and then modern dance. Tell me a little bit about your life. My daughter's a modern dancer. She went to Bennington College, so I have an affection for modern dance.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you understand that modern dance isn't just like blah, 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 interpretive willy-nilly. There's actually certain types of modern dance, like Martha Graham or whatever, is very technical, and it's very rooted in.
Yeah, Bennington College. My daughter went to Bennington. She studied in the building named after Martha Graham, and in a program that had foundations with Merce Cunningham, and
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, I did a little ballet as a child and a teenager, but I couldn't go on point. And by the time that you had to like go on point, I kind of switched gears, and I studied with this modern dance teacher for children that Claire Danes also studied with, Ellen Robbins, and I think she's still teaching in Greenwich Village. But so it was very like, sorry, my battery's dying. Hold on. Oh, my battery's dying. But very technical in the beginning of the class, and then the last half of the class is improvisational. Anyway, so that was a lot of and I did like summer courses at Alvin Ailey, but I was nowhere near like going to be a professional dancer. It was just more part of the artistic upbringing, I guess.
Right. I mean, there are all the components of music, movement, and theater, right? So that's and movement is part of what you do in your life, in a sense, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's important. Was there any music in your household when you were growing up? Was that a big part of your life in terms of playing music, or just obviously appreciating? You named your son.
I love music so much, and I so wish that I had musical talent. Growing up, not really. My mom played a lot of records, and I always have very distinct memories of her like cleaning the house, listening to Fleetwood Mac, or listening to Talking Heads, even Cyndi Lauper, Tina Turner. so yeah, I mean, we've always listened to a lot of music, but nobody plays music in my family. I took singing lessons for a while, off and on, like if I was in between jobs. And now uh, I've started this animation job. And to me, it's like, because I'm not a musician, it's the closest I'll ever get to having that experience of being in a recording studio and having to modulate your voice. I worked with the director, James Lapine, on a Broadway show many years ago. And he said to me, he's like, you should take singing lessons because it will teach you to modulate your voice and control your voice more. And he was right.
Interesting. And you've never had to sing in a role, right? That hasn't happened. Or have you? No, what's that?
It has not happened yet. I mean, I'm not going to be singing Frozen anytime soon. I'm not like a Broadway singer, but I can carry it too.
Yeah. So what, with your life in acting, you've been able to go role to role to role. Are you currently developing things that you're going to write and direct? Are you going? You said you know not yet when I asked you the question, but is this is this is something that you would like to do with your life, or it's not that important, and doing what your career dedication has been is really the still very much the focus?
So, I mean, I love acting, and I feel like acting and directing kind of feed each other. I have been really wanting to direct something longer, a feature, and I've been actively looking for the right story. Well, first it was like just building up the courage to go like, actually, I think I can do this, and I want to make that a priority. Then kind of trying to figure out what the right story would be. I think I found it. It's a little weird talking about it because I'm working on adapting a book, and I have a producer that I've worked with who's now on board to help me get it set up, but we're literally in the like contract phase and also the pitching phase of trying to get it set up with a financier or a streamer or something. So I can't like if I talk to you in like a month, 2 months, I could tell you what it is. But anyway, so yes, I'm hoping to direct a feature.
Wonderful.
In the next year or so. And then also COVID is a problem. So then it's also like,
it's a huge problem.
It's the COVID of it all, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. So for you, your life after things dropped it quieted down, but you worked several times up and through the pandemic. I mean, speaking of COVID, you've been able to work during COVID, and life has moved on, which is great. Can you wind back for me back to what you would call the most important film you saw as a young person that inspired you to do what you would ultimately do?
Oh yes, Desperately Seeking Susan.
Oh,
that's not like at film school they wouldn't say that that's The Godfather, or Citizen Kane. But for me and my upbringing, I saw it in this is the part of my personal history that doesn't quite add up, and I don't know. So I distinctly remember going to, maybe it was my imagination, I don't know. And I do have an active imagination. I distinctly remember going to see that movie in the theater that is in the movie, which was Bleecker Street Cinema on like Bleecker and McDougal Street, I want to say. It's just now Kim's Video, or was Kim's Video. But if that's true, the movie came out when I was 4 years old. So I don't imagine that my mother would have allowed me to see that movie. I don't know. I don't know. But
well, it was a repertory film, so it played in calendar theaters for years and years after that.
Oh, thank you. There you go. So I must have seen it years after it came out.
I worked as a projectionist when I was in my early 20s, and we would show exactly like that, something over and over and over again throughout the, in different, once a year, a classic, right? I mean, that's one of them. It's one of many, right? You have Strangers in Paradise, you have Harold and Maude from Hal Ashby. The list goes on and on and on, right? So it was in that rotation, Blade Runner, whatever. There was a rotation of films that would go through calendar theaters. That was one of them, for sure.
You just explained it. Okay, great. Now that makes sense. I must have seen it years after it came out. But anyway, it was, I just fell in love with Madonna and Rosanna Arquette in that movie. And I thought it was just so cool. And then throughout the years, rewatching it, it just doesn't get old. It's like the characters in that are so specific and so authentic, and it's such a funny movie and charming. Yeah, I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a difference to have certain films that provide a foundation. Do you feel that there are aspects of the kind of the badass Madonna character that you felt a kinship to in some way?
I like aspired. I mean, like most girls my age, I think we aspired to be as cool as her. Talk about visual medium too, like the sequence when she's wearing boxer shorts, suspenders, and like a wife beater, eating Cheetos. Oh no, she jumps into and stockings. She jumps into, oh yeah, she was wearing a garter belt. She jumps into the Jersey guys swimming pool, swims across the pool, gets out, and then goes and sits down, puts her sunglasses on, and eats a bunch of Cheetos. That is so vivid. I mean, it was captivating to watch, but it was so vivid without saying anything.
Right. Means something. Yeah. Impactful. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So I feel that we have certainly a lot to look forward to after this is all said and done with the shutdown. And thank God, at some point we'll see cinema come back. This has been such a pleasure hanging out with you here and chatting and talking. And I'm hoping we can do it again. Thank you so much for joining me today for this conversation.
Thank you. Such a pleasure reconnecting, and
yeah, we'll stay.
We'll stay in touch. I'll let you know and also you let me know how your projects are shaping up. But it's good to talk to you. Good to see you again.
Thank you so much. Good seeing you. Bye.
Thanks. Stay safe.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
The Pod Matrix.